Welcome to another episode of the Career Breakthrough Series. In today's episode, episode 51, I get to talk to a 16-year-old entrepreneur or serial entrepreneur who's making a massive mark in the world. So I'll ask you guys a question. At age 12, how much were you really thinking about where your career or your business was going to be? I know I wasn't. At 12, I'm pretty sure I was into video games and just relaxing or playing sport. But Josh first got his camera at age 12. This was the beginning of his complete journey into photography. So from the age of 12, with only $90 of startup capital, Josh quickly progressed from being a photographer at the local markets where he was selling his photos to then attracting large-scale clients like Holden and Mercedes Benz. Josh's incredible work has resulted in over $100,000 in revenue, won him Peninsula Young Entrepreneur of the Year award, and due to the pressures of balancing business and high school, as you can imagine, as well as a personal life, Josh actually had to give up year 9 in school. He had to drop out and focus on his business, which is incredible that it was generating that much success that he had to do that. So Josh has now expanded and diversified his business into a new venture, which is called Gntlmen. So Gntlmen is a high-end men's fashion business, which is on track this year to make 7 figures, which is absolutely incredible at 16 years old. So it was such a good interview where Josh really shared some of the struggles that he had to go through with balancing high school, personal life and business, as well as what really sparked his journey and how everyone else can find their passion and purpose in life. One more thing, guys, if you haven't already, please don't forget to rate, subscribe and review to my show to allow me to bring more incredible guests on who are really going to help you push through those barriers in your career. So without further ado, let's get started on the interview. I'll see you on the inside. Guys, welcome to another episode of the Career Breakthrough Series. I'm your host, Paul Ames. Thank you again for tuning in and giving up your time to listen to some of the most inspiring people on the planet. On today's episode, I'm interviewing Josh Brnjac. So Josh is an amazing young entrepreneur who's done incredible things with his time and journey so far. Josh, I'm so excited to share your journey, and I absolutely love what you created, man. Like, I know from, as I said before, you know, my big idea behind my business was my high school where I had no career direction, no guidance, really struggled. So I think that's amazing, man. At 12 years old, you figured out what you wanted to do, or I know that might have adapted and tweaked slightly, but yeah, man, you should be so proud of yourself.
I really appreciate that, and thank you so much for having me.
So, Josh, if you could just give us a bit of a background into, you know, what some of your biggest influences and guides were for you growing up, or what really sparked your journey to get on this path?
Yeah, most definitely. I'll just start off by saying this is green tea, by the way.
Sure.
I just want to clarify that. But what started me, like you just said there, that's the biggest keyword is adaptation, is that I started photography in 2012. And it was for me just an inspiration moving to a new country, from South Africa being a really third world country and having a lot of conflicts, especially now even, to Australia, which is obviously an amazing spot for young people, Melbourne specifically in terms of what it's doing. So it was sort of this really eye-opening experience that I sort of looked at it and I was like, well, I could wait till I finish high school or I go to uni for 2 to 4 years, or I could just do it now. Yeah. And come to a country like Australia, it's like a slap in the face, like, what's holding you back from doing it now? Exactly. Well, I found out a lot of things were, but it really inspired me to dive in. In terms of inspirations, like we were just chatting about before, there's been hundreds, literally, of separate people that have inspired me along the way. Running a creative agency and working with this portfolio of a really diverse client base is that you run into so many different people. But what's really inspired me the most is people that have, or business owners, entrepreneurs that have stuck in to their business for the long run and have been consistent through that in what they offer. For example, you sort of go from your small client range to a family-owned bakery who's been there for 30 to 50 years, and that's been like a family legacy, and it's going to be continuing as a family legacy. Yeah. That's inspired me because the statistics on businesses today, that's a 0.0001 or something % chance that that's ever going to happen to anyone. So people who have been able to make it in the long run, there must be something there. And then you also have bigger companies, such as Mercedes Benz, who I've been able to work with before, who have these systems and these operations in place that are inspiring in the sense that big business adapts in the form of systems and hierarchy structure. Really, it doesn't necessarily put more pressure on the person at the top, but it just begins to sort of distribute it. So that's inspired me in the sense of systems and things like that. So to answer your question, really, it's never been one person specifically, but it's been a whole range of people. And I thought it would be one person.
Yeah, that's really well said too. I think a lot of people think that as well. I think that there's going to be one single element or one single thing that happens in your life that's going to change everything, but it's a culmination of many things. So just touching on that too, Josh, I'd love to find out. I just wanted to share with everyone, I didn't add it in the intro, but Josh's original business, Brnjac Creative, actually got so successful that he actually had to drop out of school in year 9 to manage everything because, it was just getting too much, I can imagine. So I'd love to touch on that. So how did you find that you successfully, while you were still at school, how did you manage your personal life, business life, and everything else going on in school?
A lot of sacrifice. So at the time, it was schooling during the week, and then clients after school, and then clients on the weekend.
Wow.
So the sacrifice there was sleep and the social life, really.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's because the photography business, and I wouldn't have been able to do it. It's because the photography business was towards something greater than just money.
Definitely.
If it was a medium or a means in which I could earn a bit of extra cash, I wouldn't have been where I am now. Yeah. And also, it wouldn't have lasted. Because the sacrifice at that age, at such a developing age, losing this huge 99% of your social life, and then all those late nights, and then getting up for school the next morning, it's not ever something I'll complain about because it's taught me so much. But whenever, not conflict, but whenever new weight or a new burden comes into your life, we're very strong as humans, and that we always adapt to different things and different situations that'll come into our life. In the chaos of life, we always seem to one way or another apply an order to that, and I think that's what I had to do.
Yeah, I love that, man. I think that's great advice. So I'd love to find out, obviously we were talking about it before. So your current business is Gntlmen, which is a e-commerce high-end fashion business. So how did you find the transition going from, obviously it's still quite a creative field, but how did you find the transition, or what started your inspiration to then transition into Gntlmen?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the biggest inspiration for me to transfer into Gntlmen was the passion. Even when I started the photography business, or the creative agency, which is now currently, is my passion. What I really found really quickly, especially in the last year alone, or the past 6 months, is my passion is really, really in, not specifically the industry, but it's really in the process of building systems in a business and building order in a business, really. Yeah. So my passion for Gntlmen specifically, it came from inspiration working with a lot of retail online clients. And I saw their approaches, and I saw other, not competitors, but other businesses in the specific industry I'm in now, which is fashion. And so there was a lot of opportunity, especially where e-commerce and artificial intelligence is going, to be able to create something that would last longer than just your normal online retailer.
Yeah.
So that sparked a lot of opportunity for me, but it never first started as an online fashion store. It came out of that inspiration, but it started as 2 business models before. In the course of 2 months, I spent quite a bit of money on trying to develop them, but they both fell through. Bad management on my side, and also hiring the wrong people for the wrong tasks.
That's a big one.
So yeah, those were 2 last year, very recently actually, 2 business ideas, which people obviously not know moving forward, but 2 business ideas started before Gntlmen in the online space, which both failed.
Yeah.
And then Gntlmen was started, and it was third time lucky, I guess.
Yeah. Wow. I love that you've shared that with us, Josh, too. Like, I appreciate you sharing, being the raw and real, genuine, being able to open up and, share what you've gone through. And obviously, everybody has to go through the failures. I remember hearing a podcast one day with an entrepreneur who started 16 businesses before the 17th succeeded. All of those 16 failed. I mean, I don't even know myself if I could successfully keep pushing on for 16 businesses, but it just goes to show you, it's not always your first approach or your first adaptation of something that's going to work. So that's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And statistically, that's normal. Like the 16, 17 business, that's actually practically that's normally what should happen. So be prepared for it.
Yeah, definitely. I was just going to touch on, like we were saying about before, how you got Holden and Mercedes Benz as clients, which is huge. I'd love to find out what was your approach to getting those sort of clients on board? Did they come to you, or did you chase them up and use your creativity to get them on board?
Most definitely. That's a really good question. Both of those clients, because they're so many different, what would you say? There's so many different categories of a company. So you've got marketing, but then you've got this huge structure of who's in marketing. So knowing who to go to is one thing.
Definitely.
But both of those were from connections.
Okay.
So actually referral-based work, which is
awesome.
Really blown me away. But in terms of actually getting them, both connections who I provided. So Mercedes Benz was actually me speaking at one event, and a marketing manager happened to be there, which was great. And the other one was doing a lot of work for another agency at sort of lower than normal rate for a lot of work, and helping them out with a few different marketing initiatives.
Okay.
So in both of those things, it was providing value. And humans, it's so interesting being in business, studying how people work, really, because that's all business is about. You're studying how your market works, and then actually seeing how your product positively impacts them. Yeah. So for me, it was creating valuable connections, and I'm gonna avoid the pyramid scheme marketer approach and just talk about adding value, because I think that's not great advice. But really what it is it's being able to create meaningful connections and partnerships with people where you don't see a direct output, but you see something in the future and sowing into that, and something sooner or later is going to come out of that. And for me, that came out in very short periods of time, which I'm hugely grateful for.
Yeah, definitely.
And then obviously the follow. Yeah. And then that's one thing. And then the second part of that is when the clients come onto you is proving yourself. So the biggest thing for me, I found in business is my age has not been a
hindrance,
a positive at all when getting clients. So I've had to do a lot of things in hiding my age. But a good thing about me is people don't normally recognize my age as 16. So it's all, I try to hide it as much as I can. And I mean, clients only find out about, if they do ever find out about my age, 2 to 3 projects in or campaigns in. So it's something that doesn't come up a lot. Funnily enough.
That's really good. And I completely agree with you. That was really wise advice, what you said about, building meaningful connections. I think that's the number one thing that, I think until you test and prove it yourself and realize how powerful it is having, I've always been like a great communicator and found it easy to build rapport with people. So I think that's one of the biggest things that's really allowed me to reach out to a lot of these guests where people have said, Paul, how did you get that person, or how did you reach out to them? And I think it's one, being creative in your approach to them, and persistent.
That's so true.
And then, just building connections, because referrals, I've had plenty of referrals from, Paul, you should interview this person. Cool. So, great advice there, Josh.
Yeah, definitely. And you're a huge example of that, obviously, in who you've actually had on the show. So, I mean, I've taken a lot of inspiration from who you've reached out to. And even if you don't get it all the time, there's always that the start. There's like this little kindling that's there into the future. They're like, oh, I've heard from you before.
Yeah.
I know you. There's that familiarity there. Yeah.
So true, man. So just touching back on, I know I have a wide audience of people that listen to the show. So, if there's any high school students listening, as I said, we were having a chat about it before off camera, what would be some advice?
Yeah.
Like, I know that was my biggest struggle in it. I think about all of the negative emotions and things like that for not having any direction, and year 12 creeping up in you closer and closer. What would be some advice you'd like to give to students who are really lost and confused and trying to figure out what they want to do?
Is put your that's a really good question. Is the biggest piece of advice would be to separate, and this is probably what dropping out did for me, is separate yourself from the crowd and find your identity within yourself before you try to pursue anything. So it's practically what that looks like is a lot of questioning who you are. And if you really, really, you feel like you have something in you to be able to give to the world, which all of us do, that's no
Definitely.
doubt there. Something positive to give is finding yourself first. But I think that comes a lot through questioning, but mostly separating yourself, whether that be from, so not separating yourself socially, but separating yourself in reason from finding your identity within groups. So I think a lot of what happens today is even the political landscape as well. I've seen a lot in Australia mostly, but also mostly the US, it's a lot of group identity, which destroys the individual. And we're all individual and made our own way and made to give something into this world in our own capacity.
Definitely.
So it's finding that, and then out of that, it's finding it's what I'm passionate about, but mostly it's what do you hate? I hate say world poverty, or I hate that there are people in my city sleeping on the streets. It's what do you passionately hate as well as what you passionately love, and then you can go off that. What really sort of burns inside of you.
Yeah, I really like that. I've never actually heard the passionately hate part. That's a really good point. That's obviously creating figuring out what one of the biggest problems are in the world or in your local area or environment, and then doing something about it because you're so fueled up and charged inside to keep pushing through and to change that. So that's great, man.
And hate is a strong word, but hate against injustice is not a bad thing.
Yeah,
you see people like a Martin Luther King who hates injustice and hates certain situations of oppression, and that fuels change.
Definitely, yeah, for sure, man. So just touching on that, I know you would have gone through quite a lot of mental roadblocks and obstacles in your career path so far. Obviously, been some significant changes and some massive achievements that you've achieved. What do you think would be some of the biggest mental roadblocks that you've had to overcome, and how do you feel that you've successfully overcome them?
Yeah, no, I've had a huge experience with mental roadblocks. So, I mean, I think it started at the reason why I started everything earlier is because I think those mental roadblocks came a lot earlier than they should have for me. So I remember immigrating from South Africa into Australia and moving from one culture. I mean, I was only 7 or 8 moving to Australia, but moving from one culture to another does a lot to you. And especially when you're moving your whole life, including friendship groups, family. So we left our whole, obviously our family, but we left extended family all over South Africa. It does a lot to you as a family. And going through that time at 12 years old, a lot of that was deep, deep depression. And I mean, for me, it started from a bad place of it was mostly because I felt so purposeless and useless, that those thoughts of suicide, and you're like, well, is my life worth it? And why is my life worth living? Like, am I a waste of space? So it comes out of that. But that's been sort of the biggest roadblock. That was at sort of 12 years old. What came out of that were life's inevitably, we all ask ourselves these questions, but those big questions that at one point or another we'll ask ourselves in life. And that for me at 12 years old, it wasn't when I was asking myself those questions, like, for example, is my life worth living? And if so, what am I here to do? You don't think of it on this bird's eye view sort of perspective, which would be good when you're having those kind of thoughts, but you don't always get that advantage, especially when you're going through those mental roadblocks. But you look at it saying, not physically, what am I going to do? Like, I'm going to do this business now, this business then, and I'm going to travel to that country. But you look at, if I were to, I think Steve Jobs encapsulates this, I don't know if that's the right word.
No,
but he lived this amazingly through his life. But if I were to die tomorrow, would I be happy doing what I'm doing today?
Yeah.
And that's a really commonly used quote. But for me, it was really like, it was a genuine, like it was a literal thing. Like, do I really want to keep on living here? And what's going to count towards something much? And I decided that for me, it would be counting or not sacrificing, but putting my life towards something, a cause that was much greater than just myself and would impact more people than just me. And I think as humans, we all sort of go toward connection. So fast forwarding from that was a really big point in my life and taught me a lot, which was a real positive at the end of the day. But fast forwarding from that, from dropping out of school, and then you sort of wave in and out of social groups, and it's a lot of loneliness, especially when you're running a lot of your business remotely and a lot of your team isn't necessarily in the same room or office as you, especially with what I do. So it's finding out that happiness and fulfillment is a state. It's not a pinnacle point that you're going to reach one day in your life, which you'll never reach if you think it's up here. It's something that's ongoing, and it's taught me to be grateful about the small things in life, just small day-to-day things that you sort of overlook. But in the grand scheme of things, if you just stop and take the time to appreciate them, they make a huge difference in your state, mostly your state and your focus and your energy, but most importantly in your day.
Yeah, wow.
So those have been the two biggest roadblocks: is the loneliness, and then also earlier in life is that really deep state of depression.
Wow, I can actually relate to a lot of it, obviously on a different spectrum, but high school was a big struggle for me as well. I was bullied just about every single day. I was very small, like short in high school, and constantly got the feeling that I was worthless, and I did consider like suicide a couple of times. But it's funny that you learn and grow from that. I learned to be self-confident, have my own support, and build myself up as a result. And actually, that's the whole reason why I started my initial business, which is now rebranded into resumes and cover letters, but to help other students going through the pain that I went through, or to avoid the pain that I went through, is a big point for me and big pain point. So I appreciate that, man.
And exactly, avoid the pain, avoid that unnecessary suffering in your life. That's so true. And I think even like in the same sense, I was the tallest in my grade, because actually when I moved to Australia, I got dropped down a level in school. So you have year 1, year 2, year 3. I don't know how it works in sort of internationally, but that's in Australia. And I got dropped down a year level. So it's those constant thoughts like, what's wrong with me? My IQ level, my smartness. So it's interesting how that translates into a real world environment, but in a school bubble environment, you don't see that outside perspective. It normally comes on later than it needs to be.
Yeah, so true. That I really appreciate you sharing all that, Josh. That's amazing, man. So just moving forward onto, I'd love to know what sort of things you're excited about. What sort of things are you looking forward to for where Gntlmen's heading to, or what's some big developments going on with you?
Yeah. Well, I think what I'm really looking forward to with Gntlmen is seeing how much technology has to go. Because I think the way we shop online at the moment, it's transformed from going, I think there's still a conflict between shopping for fashion online and shopping for fashion in store, because in store you have this tangible physical piece of clothing in front of you, you can touch and you can feel and you can try on. So that's the downfall of online for both merchants and the customer, because the customer has to return the product and loses something that they love that doesn't fit them. But then the merchant loses that sale and that customer. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to bridge the gap between that. And it's going to come in a few different sub-brands under Gntlmen, but with the same vision in the fact that I want to basically create Gntlmen, and this is just the first brand, into a more personalized, intelligent experience, and it's really exciting because software for this has actually recently come out and really been improved through augmented reality, virtual reality, but also a lot of artificial intelligence, AI, is mobile tailoring software. So what that means is you can basically measure yourself to the 0.0 millimeter, which is so cool, to find the clothing that fits you best. And off that, you can order custom tailored clothing, which is really what I want to go down, but also see what size suits within that. So that's where I'm trying to take Gntlmen into a personalized online shop that's basically your stylist, with artificial intelligence comes in. So virtual reality more comes in the side of deciding what's the right fit for you for more men's suits, women's dresses, stuff like that, fashion pieces like that. And then you have the artificial intelligence on this side, which is the creating a recurring customer base. After we've got that first sale that fits them perfectly, they come back. And then creating something that a platform, not just a website, a platform that becomes more intelligent the more you use it, which today with software is very exciting, because it tracks basically your online shopping habits, your online shopping experiences, what you like, what you don't like, and develops a wardrobe at the best prices, with branded and both independent fashion brands, which is where we're trying to support more independent fashion brands, to make a wardrobe that's suited to you. Because I mean, I think fashion is rather than us trying to set certain trends, we're trying to make fashion more of an outward expression of yourself. It's something that you can use to express yourself, and what people have been doing for hundreds of years. So that's what I'm really trying to capitalize on in a way.
Yeah, wow. What an incredible response. And I actually love that you've touched on that as well, because my previous guest in the episode before you was Philip DeBella. He's pretty much the coffee king of Australia. And he was saying that one of the key defining points that he was saying is what's helped him become really successful was changing just a product-based business into a service-based business and expanding on that. So going above and beyond just selling a bag of beans, it's offering that service, providing barista support. And like what you said, by offering that custom-tailored responses and custom-tailored apps and different things like that to complete the whole customer service and environment, that's where the money and the success is in your business, and being able to make a bigger impact on the world. So man, that's incredible that you said that.
At the end of the day, it also prevents this hoarding culture in terms of fashion. Because if you think like the 80-20 rule is when you go into your closet, 80% of the clothes you never wear or wear 1% of the time, but then 20% you wear 99% or all of the time.
So true.
So if we can get it right in the initial phase, then we can really expand on that. So that's awesome to hear. So.
Yeah, definitely, man. And I wish you all the best with your vision. I know you're going to do amazing things, as you already have, man. So yeah, keep on pushing hard. So Josh, just getting ready to wrap up soon, man. But I have a one of the first few final questions that I always ask all of my guests. It's the miracle question, which has basically come from the style of counselling that I incorporated for my first business. So imagine if you went to sleep tonight and overnight a miracle had occurred. When you wake up the next day, anything you ever wanted to impact on the world or anyone you wanted to impact in the world had come true. There were no financial roadblocks, no mental roadblocks holding you back. What would be that big impact you'd love to make on the world, and why would it be so important to you?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think the biggest impact I would want to make on the world is if I woke up tomorrow and saw it in effect, would probably be young men. because I think with what's happening in today's culture is the purpose is only discovered at like age 20, 21 and above, or even later than that. And I think that's a terribly depressing thing for young men, and suicide rates as you get older for men really rise, which is really a scary statistic. And I think it's this loss of purpose in trying to find your group in a social dynamic or in a group dynamic, rather than finding your individual purpose and then running through like that, because purpose is a powerful and also a dangerous thing. But when used right, it can really positively impact the world. It goes back to sort of my original saying that we all have this one thing to share with the world that will positively impact, and something that's meaningful. So I think being able to have something that helps other young men to be able to discover their purpose I would happily count that as a life well lived.
Yeah, definitely, man. Yeah, that's such a powerful thing and such an important thing as well. I mean, yeah, I didn't find out what I really wanted to do. I spent 10 years, from the time I was 18 till 30, I pretty much just job hopped, working job after job, working in the underground mines as a baker, job after job, and until I hit 30 when I figured out what I wanted to do. So it's kind of, that's such a big thing. And, as I said, all of those emotions that go through with that, where you feel lost, you don't know why, you can't find anything you like. It's so important to help people find that at a younger age is incredible. Obviously, it's going to adapt over time, but just getting on the kind of path or direction you want is perfect.
Yeah, and in that sense, it's nothing. I mean, like, I would say all people as well. It's something against the other gender, but I think women are really amazing in the sense of purpose, in that they sometimes express emotions a lot more than men in most cases, but that allows them to talk through and walk through their problems mentally as well, whereas men tend to sort of shovel that down, whereas women can talk about those problems, identify what the problem is, and then work through it, whereas men, that can take years to do.
Yeah, so true. Josh, it's been an absolute pleasure, man. I've really loved our conversation. I've got so much insight out of you, and just to hear your journey, that's the part why I love interviewing people so much, to hear everyone's incredible journey and unique path. As you said, we've all got a special gift inside of us that we're meant to impact the world. So it's great to hear yours and where it's going to. So just before we go, Josh, I'd love to know, if somebody wanted to reach out with you and get on board with your incredible products, where would be the best place to do that?
Well, I would love to connect with some awesome people. So the best place to do that would be Instagram at jb.aus, AUS. And then the brand is all through that Instagram and social media channel.
Awesome. Well, Josh, thank you again for your time, man. I really appreciate it. And I can't wait to hear where your future updates go and where your journey's heading to. So thank you again. And guys,
thanks so much for having me, Paul.
My pleasure, man. It's been great. So guys, stay tuned next week, where we've got another incredible guest who's really going to inspire you and motivate you and help you with key tips to help you in your career or in your business. So stay tuned then. Thanks, guys.